I'm going to be going over the Takedown CTF on TryHackMe. This is something I completed on October 2nd, so it's been about 3 months. I don't really remember everything right now. I'm just going to be following the steps that I took previously, which I've shown in this write-up. I'm going to have that linked down below so you can check that out as well. There is more than one way to go about this machine, so the way that I did it isn't necessarily entirely, I guess, the way it's intended to happen or be exploited, but it does work. It looks like if you were to go onto TryHackMe, you'll notice that it was made by Husky Hacks. If you aren't following him already, I would go ahead and check him out. He has a lot of information to give people, and I'm pretty sure he just came out with some sort of university for people to kind of learn and get to be more familiar with malware analysis and other things. And that's kind of what this machine goes over, is malware analysis, and I was completely new to this when I started this machine. Once it came public, I just felt like I really had to get it done. There wasn't anything else I wanted to focus on at the time, and I spent, I don't know, maybe 4 or 5 days on it overall, because there was a lot that I had to learn. I am connected to the TryHackMe VPN right now. I have the machine IP, and if we go over to my virtual machine here, I've already put in the IP address with takedown.thm.local. That's what it's recommended to do here in the first task. I've already ran a nmap scan and a directory enumeration scan. Those take a little while, so I wanted to get that out of the way first. It looks like there's going to be 2 flags that we need to get, the user txt and the root txt. First, I'm going to go over the task file. That here kind of goes over the situation about cyber criminals operation, specifically with Risotto Group. They believe that this website was hacked by them, and we are supposed to identify indicators of compromise and regain positive control of the server, prosecute and deny the Risotto Group operators, produce proof of positive control of the target web server, which is the 2 flags. And there's some rules of engagement here and some malware. Let's see if I can zoom in. These are some of the known malwares and hashes of those malwares that they use. So we're going to go ahead and see if we can find some. So you should be able to see here my nmap scan that I did. It looks like there's 2 ports that are open right now, and that is going to be SSH and port 80. So I'm going to go and pull up the website here. And right now it's a very basic website. I mean, it's very well done, but there's nothing out of the ordinary. There's not really an indication of compromise that you can see. Nothing's been defaced. Everything seems to be working. I'm going to go back to our scans. I believe that would be in the derb scan that I ran. Yep. And I think it was 30% done by the time I got these directories. The reason why I didn't keep going is because the images directory is the one that I'm going to be looking at first. That's the one that I was able to find information, the malware for instance. If we go ahead and go down here to shutterbug.jpeg.bak, my knowledge in web hosting, when we used to want the server to not read something, we would go ahead and put a .bak at the end of it. So for instance, if we were fixing a WordPress site, there was 2 indexes inside. One was an index.html, one was an index.php. Because of the hierarchy that occurs within the Linux servers, it would read that HTML index first and kind of make their website hidden. Since it was WordPress, it needed PHP to run, and it's kind of similar to this. The website, or this file here, shutterbug.jpeg.bak, I believe that's some sort of backup extension. The server's not going to read this on the website. We have to interact with it manually. Okay, I cleared my screen. I am going to try to download that Shutterbug file that looks a little suspicious to me using the wget command. Let's go ahead and hit enter. Looks like it downloaded. Let's go ahead and zoom in here just a little bit. I'm going to cat Shutterbug, and we just get a bunch of nonsense in here. And so that already kind of looks a little suspicious. I'm going to clear my screen. ls, and then we have our Shutterbug file. I'm going to go ahead and do file on the Shutterbug, and it looks like it is an elf file, which is an executable file, as you can also see right here. So this already is a very good indication that this is not an actual image. This is put there intentionally. Basically, this is an indication of compromise, which is what we're looking for. And if we go back here and we look at the malware types, shutterbug.jpg is one of those names that they typically use. And previously when I went through this, I actually uploaded that file to VirusTotal and analyze.intezer.com and got confirmation that the file was malicious. Since I know that this is a CTF, nothing bad is really going to come of this. I went ahead and actually interacted with the file, as you can see in my write-up. But I would not recommend necessarily doing this if you're finding something in the wild, unless you have a very secure virtual machine sort of sandbox that you can go ahead and do it on. You're disconnected from the network, and maybe you want to analyze the packets that try to go out, then I would go ahead and do so. But again, since I know that nothing bad is going to happen here, I'm going to interact with it. But since it's an executable, I'm going to run it with a // hit enter, and I have permission denied. Try changing the permission here. Let me try that one more time. Okay, so now it's going through, and we have some emojis. That kind of doesn't give us much information, unfortunately, but I'm going to go ahead and do this one more time, but I'm going to add the H flag to it for help, and it looks like we have a few more options now. We have our usage option, we have H and version. We'll try with the version. It says drone ready, check key to username, so we're getting more information here, but it's still not enough. I'm going to go ahead and clear my screen and type in another command that I had gone through. Hopefully you can read the command I have up on the screen here. What I was trying to do was specifically find some functions that may be in the string. Well, the functions will be declared in the file sources code, like the lib function might be present in a few different tables, or there could be something else. Typically this would be something to note, because certain tables might indicate what is occurring within the executable. There's still a lot more that goes into that I'm not too trained up on. Like I said, I had to learn a lot just to get this far, but I'm going to go ahead and hit enter. We just want to check out and see if there's anything going on here, some sort of function that might give us a better answer of what's going on. Like for instance, looks like we have something about changing directories, connect, that might be kind of interesting, write functions, and a few other things as well. Let's go ahead and see if we can read some of the strings here. I went ahead and ran the command without the other things next to it. What we did before really narrowed a lot of things down, but this is what you would see if you didn't run all those awk and grep commands, or pipe them in with the readelf string command to begin with. Now it looks like you'll see the symbol tables. We scroll down even more, and we're going to see a lot of information. It's going to be over 1,000 lines. We want to probably just grab all the strings here and try to find some more information. I'm going to run the strings command, grab the shutterbug, and then we're going to put it in string.txt. Let's go ahead and cat that. We have a lot of information there as well. I'm going to go ahead and try to sort through this a little bit better. With the write-up, there's a few things that I have noticed. If we go ahead and just scroll up here, something might stand out to you. You'll see some of the text goes a little bit bigger. Right now it looks like a bunch of gibberish. Let's keep going, and you'll notice in this area right here, right now we have a Windows C drive being referenced, foo.exe. We get host name, password, upload, commands to run, and all these other things. It looks like there's going to be a lot of information right here that we're going to be needing later on. This is the user agent. This will be representative in our request to the server. Whether we're interacting with any website really, it's going to have that being sent in our packets. This is something that people can change though. The next thing we really want to take note of here, this string where it talks about specifically /API/agents. That's not something we were able to see before, and I didn't grab that within my directory scan using GoBuster. If I would have let it run longer, it probably would have found it, but I'm going to go ahead and we'll just take it from the string here. So we have our takedown.thm.local API agents register. Let's go ahead and hit enter. It says not found. Let's take register out. And then it says not found. Agents not found. API not found. We'll go ahead and play around with that a little bit further, but right now I'm going to keep that as is. I'll just put that to the side or minimize. And just to reiterate, this string specifically mentions a user agent, Firefox, and then it has all this other information right here. So the next thing we want to try to do is a user agent exploit. For this, we want to use Burp Suite. I'm going to go ahead and pull that up. And right now, we just want to grep specifically MOZ, because that's going to give us our user agent that we're going to need. And I think again we actually might need one more thing because we had our specific file path that we want to take note of. Another thing you might be able to see a little bit more clear now is it says ready to REC. That's either going to be reconnect or receive from C2 server. We know that a C2 server is malicious. This is another indication that there's a compromise and that this is malware. Again, the main reason we're here is to pull up Burp Suite. I'm going to go ahead and see if I can grab that now. Okay, my intercept is on. I have the browser pulled up. I'm not sure if I can zoom into this, but I'll try my best to make it so you can see what's going on. I'm going to pull my terminal back up. We're going to go ahead and take the URL right here from the string. I'm going to paste that in. Now let's go and just take the agents part. Bring that in, we have it here now, and we're going to send this to repeater. Go to our repeater, I'm going to go ahead and hit send, and we have a 404 not found. So again, going back to our terminal, let's go ahead and grab the information here for our user agent. I'm going to copy selection. I'm going to edit my user agent now. Go down, take away that extra line. I'm going to hit send. Remember, this is 404 not found. Now we have 200 OK. So it looks like this is how we're going to need to interact with that C2 server, or how the hacker group is interacting with everything. What we're now going to do, we're going to try something else. Let's just take out the / and agents, for instance. Go ahead and hit send. And now we have more information. We're going to go ahead and grab that. Let's save this in our terminal. We'll just do echo, or let's do nano, just to be safe so we don't miss any characters. Sometimes echo doesn't bring everything over. I don't know what we'll call this is user agent .info. Save that just so we have it. Now going back to Burp Suite, I'm going to go ahead and try grabbing this right here and treat it like an actual agent. So /, paste that in. Let's go ahead and hit send. And now we have our UID and our host name. This is different now to what we had previously. Before it just had everything in the curly brackets. Now we have a UID. So this is very important in this step. I'm going to pull that to the side a little bit, go back to our terminal, and remember in our strings when we were going through, there's a lot of information. Commands was one of them, I remember. Maybe it was command, yep, checking for command. So that's something we can use here in our pages. Let's maybe try going back to agents, type command, see if that sends anything. We have a 401 unauthorized, not a live agent. That's fine. Let's go ahead and do commands, send, and now we have available commands. So we have ID, who am I, upload, download, a few other things there. We aren't completely where we want to be yet, but we are getting somewhere still. This should confirm that we have our / commands, which we're looking at right now. We have / upload and download. I'm just going to go ahead and see what happened with upload. Hit send. We get unauthorized. Let's maybe try download. And we have send 401 unauthorized. So both of those are the same. One more thing that I noticed, I'm not going to go ahead and interact with the malware this way, but after completing the room, something that I noticed was a specific word here. I remember c.oberst being inside of there. That later on I found, I think you'd have to change our UID or create a user on a machine, interact with it that way. We could try that. I'm not going to do that today though. I'm just going to follow what I had done previously and go back to Burp. What we want to do is try to access this web server. There's a couple of things we're going to change here. We're going to use that live agent ID that we found earlier. We're going to actually change our request. So instead of get, we're going to make it post. And then let's go ahead and clear screen here, ls cat user agent. I'm going to grab that. I'm going to put that back in here. I'm going to do / upload. And still we have our custom user agent set here. We need to keep that there. And then next we're going to go down to line 10. We're going to put a curly bracket, tab, do file. We'll just do all, hit enter. The asterisk would be kind of everything. That's why I said all, but we're going to hit enter now after putting in our last curly bracket to close, hit send. We have a 404 bad request with this one because I need to actually add in our content type. So I'm going to go ahead and put that under connection here. Go ahead and put content type under connection. The reason why it didn't work actually is because this right here is for a JSON application and we did not specify that for our content type. I'm going to try sending one more time. Okay, perfect. Now we have a 500 internal server error. This may seem like we're still not getting anywhere, but that's actually not the case. This is a good sign. We can change a few things and get better information. So instead of the asterisk, I'm going to be a little more specific. Let's go to a host file, for instance. Let's try sending that. And now we get some more information, like we have a C2 Shrite1 and then a little IP address there. Let's see if we can maybe grab anything else. I'm not sure if it's going to allow us to, but let's try password file, for instance. We got that as well. So we are getting more information now from the server, things that we're not supposed to see. And what we're doing is interacting with the malware that was put onto the Infinity website or web server. And this is what is being used to interact with a C2 server. So malware is put onto a web server, and that's what's used as the middleman for the C2 server. Don't really notice any users on here that are going to be helpful to us right now. I'm going to go ahead and go back to the terminal. Let's go to our strings. And the thing that I had noticed previously was exec, so like execute. We do see that is right here being referenced. That's something we had noticed previously when we saw all the text with like the user agent, for instance, a command that can be run from the malware to the C2 server. If we go back to burp now, right here we're using the upload command. So we can change that to exec, and instead of trying to grab a file, which we did right here, like the password file, for instance, and the host file, let's go ahead and change this instead of file to cmd. Then we have etc password, take that out. And what we're going to want to do now is actually try to reset up a reverse shell. And right now what I'm going to be doing is actually grabbing the IP address for the server. So I got that in there. What I'm trying to do right now is to make sure that we're able to interact or receive or send information to that IP address. So I'm setting up a rule in the firewall to allow this to happen. And after that, we're going to want to set up a netcat listener. So we have our netcat listener set up. We're going to try on port 5555. I'm going to go ahead and hit enter. Again, this is going to allow the C2 server to interact with our server. We're going to open up port 555 on our server to try to receive information from the C2 server. So rules added, and now we're listening. So what I found that worked was sending the information across encoded in base 64, and then you pipe it to decode the base 64, and then pipe it to bash. I'm going to go ahead and put that in here so you can see what I'm talking about. So I put in my command here, and this is the part that is going to be encoded in base 64. I actually need to take out this apostrophe, hit encode one more time, and this IP is my VPN IP for TryHackMe. Just to keep in mind, this is going to be the IP you want the C2 server to connect to, and the port that you set up a listener for. Then we have our execute bash, and then going down here is the base 64 that we need to send over to the C2 server. So I'm going to go ahead and grab this and just minimize, go paste that in here. So I want to use our pipes now, like I mentioned before. Do base 64 minus D for decode, pipe it one more time to bash. We actually need to do execute and echo. Hit send. Perfect. You should be able to see now that we have a connection. I'm going to minimize all this here. Let's go ahead and do ls. And we have our first file here. If we go back to the TryHackMe website, we should remember that the user.txt was our first flag. I'm going to go ahead and look at that. Wow. You got to keep in mind that it's not as interactive as our normal shell. So like tabbing, for instance, isn't going to finish the file names for us. So I have to type everything out. And we have our first flag there. The next step is actually going to be becoming root. Can't clear our screen, but I'm going to go ahead and just hit enter a couple times. Let's run ID. Right now we're the user web admin low priv. The only group we're in is in the web admin group. So we probably don't have any sudo privileges. I can see if I can run sudo l, and you need to run that from a terminal with a password, it says. So that's not going to be any help to us. Again, I'm going to go ahead and hit enter a couple times, just try to give us more space here. One thing I had tried, and this does work in a lot of instances for a lot of machines in the CTF world. If we go ahead and try to find permissions for certain files, hopefully this doesn't kill our connection here. This is going to search the whole machine, try to find certain permissions that we can try to exploit. So for instance, if there were any here for sudo, like we have bin su, bin sudo for snap, sometimes you'll get a little bit lucky and there might be a specific thing you can exploit. I remember going through here and not finding anything. When you are trying to go this route, you would typically want to just check out like gtfobins.com, I think it is, or gtfo.bins, something like that. This will tell you how things can be exploited if you find a specific file path within these file permissions. This was just to show you a step that I had taken, but I didn't find anything. But one thing that I did find was I was trying to see the processes. So I did ps-ox. And that does show our processes. I'm going to see if I can make this a little bit bigger. I'll run it one more time. ps-ox. Might be a little bit easier to read now. One thing we can see is the command that we had ran. This is how we were able to connect with this process. It's still on right now. That's how we're connected. But if you scroll up here a little bit, there's also Docker. That's something we can maybe take a note of. Let's look a little bit further though. You notice a Python 3 app.py. That is probably something that is making the C2 server work. I believe that's another way you can kind of interact with getting to root maybe, but that's not what we're gonna focus on right now. So actually, this is what we wanna look at. We have user, share, diamorphine, secret, svc ghost. So after doing some research, we see that svc ghost is an ELF file, similar to like the Shutterbug. It's not something that we can interact with right now from this reverse shell, but it is an odd file to be running, something that we can investigate. Another thing to take a note of is this was actually run by webadmin, which is us. So since we don't really know what this is doing, after doing some research, we can find that this is more malicious than anything else. It could be worth just getting rid of this. I'm going to bring over this file here from GitHub. So this is the diamorphine, which we were just looking at. I'm going to go back here a little bit. So we see that diamorphine is a LKM rootkit. This is a weird process to be running. Let's go ahead and see if we can just get rid of it. There's some information right here to hide the process, and we have something very interesting. So we have sending a signal 64, and EPID makes the given user become root. I'm gonna go back to the machine here, just hit enter a couple times so we can see that we're still logged in. We want to kill this process. Again, we're stuck as the web admin user right now. I went through a lot of attempts to try to escalate privileges before, and this is the only one that I found that had worked. So one more time, I'm going to run ID. We have our user ID as web admin, low privilege. Now let's go ahead and kill that process. So kill. And remember, we have to do signal 64. We can go ahead and hit enter now. Okay, so it repeated what we just put in. Let's do ID one more time. Now we see that we're actually root. So remember, sending the kill signal 64 with that rootkit to any process is going to change our user to root. So this is actually a pretty cool type of malware. If you were to put that on any machine and run this like we had just did, it will change our user to root. Here, since we have become the root user on the C2 server, let's go ahead and grab our flag. And then we see our last flag here. So I just wanted to show this room to you guys because it was by far the hardest room I have ever done. Difficulty level on TryHackMe is indicated as insane. It's the only room I've ever completed with that level before. But I do have to give a lot of credit to Husky Hacks for creating this room to begin with. It was very, very awesome compared to all the other ones I've done in the past, or even ones that I've made. This is something that is a little bit more real world, where you actually find malware on a web server, can indicate that there's true compromise there, and then you were able to try to take down the C2 server or the people that were hacking. So it looks like this room, he had made it in July, he released it in September, and his walkthrough was done on October 4th. The one that I did, you can read as well. That walkthrough was October 2nd. But if you want to go through the steps that I took, this would be how to do so. I'm either following along this video or reading what I've done here. I go through a little bit more depth in my walkthrough, a little bit more of my thought process, so maybe it makes a little more sense to read through that, but he goes through a lot more information than I did, and in some ways, proper ways to go through what occurs within here. Looks like, for instance, his enumeration went a little bit longer than mine with GoBuster, and he talks about like the send email.php file. I had found that as well. You can see that in my write-up, but try this on your own as well. I am going to link something down below that helped me with analyzing malware and reading ELF files and so on. But I know that Husky Hacks has a lot of information on how to do this as well. Hopefully you can see up top he has like a button, learn malware analysis from me. It's something he's very good at. Go ahead and follow him on all of his platforms. I believe if you go to the TryHackMe room, we had seen it down below in there. But I do want to thank you guys for watching. I know I didn't really explain too much probably in this video. There's just not enough time. And like I said, I had done this about 3 months ago. So a lot of the information I had learned, I kind of don't remember right now because I haven't been consistent with that specific learning. Another thing to maybe take a note from this is if you're just going through a informative room, or if you're going through a CTF, make sure you document all of that. Document your thought processes, what failed, what didn't, so that you can keep learning and growing. And I'll try to do more walkthroughs later, but if you have any suggestions of things you want to know, things that I maybe have to learn myself in order to teach you, I'm still down for that, so just let me know. Have a good one.